This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Since you're new to H&R Block, we'll look at your returns from the last 3 years for any money your last guy might have missed for free.
I could get money back from last year?
You could. We'll find any mistakes.
Could have really used that 2 years ago when I dated that mistake for 5 months.
Don't leave money on the table. Switch to H&R Block and get a free second look review. Second look is included at no additional cost with the purchase of tax preparation. Results vary. All tax situations are different. Fees apply if you have us file an amended return.
Hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Jamie Hale.
And I'm Chiara Profeta. Together, we take you on some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see. And today, we're talking about taking stupid hikes for our stupid mental health.
This is, I vividly remember these videos coming through a few years ago. The image is of a guy kind of stomping through the woods, like getting outside in these beautiful hikes, but sort of like, it's like that feeling of being like, God, I'm doing something for myself that's good, but like, I really don't want to be doing it. Do you remember these videos? Did you get these?
I didn't actually have these on my feed until very recently. So I was kind of new to getting into who the hiker was in these videos. But it was really interesting to dive in while I was prepping for this and hear a little bit more about who this is. So today we're talking to Andy Neal, who's the content creator and social media influencer from right here in Oregon behind these videos. So Andy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here.
Andy, let's just talk at first here. These videos you started making, when was it you started doing these videos?
January 4th, 2022. It was on a whim. There was people doing, it was New Year's, people were doing stupid walk for their stupid mental health, like through the city, like through the neighborhood. And my daughter at the time was going to a magnet school that was right by a bunch of, it was like an outdoor magnet school. So it was a bunch of trails nearby, dropped her off at school. And I'm like, I'll make it own, but I'll make my own, but I'll do a stupid hike for my stupid mental health. And it was the weirdest thing. I made it, I uploaded it, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home. It was about a 20-minute drive home. I got from the trail where I uploaded it to home 10,000 views. I was like, oh my gosh, I had never had anything more than 5,000 views on a video ever. Like, this is awesome. Then I went ahead and I'll post it to that new app called TikTok. And on TikTok, immediately, like, boom, million. And then Instagram was like, hold my beer. And it was like 37 million. And I was like, and then all the brands there was like, shoo, who are you? What do you do? And like news reporters were coming. It was crazy. But I've been making the videos ever since. And now I'm have the dream job of every 19-year-old in Los Angeles to be a full-time influencer.
So this was not like your plan. You were not like, let me go out and be a social media influencer.
I had always been in, like, I had went back to school in 2017 for a digital cinema degree at Southern Oregon University. I'd always been in that realm. I'd done a lot of like social media management for like, companies would hire me. Hey, you look young and hip. I'm in my 40s. Can you run our social media for us? I'm like, oh, sure. Yeah. And I make videos and pithy little things. I had gotten into some modeling. I'd started posting a lot about being a bigger dude in the outdoors in Columbia Sportswear. Said, hey, we like your look. And I started doing, they sent me up to the Gorge. I did some modeling shoots with them for their bigger lines of clothes. So I've kind of been in the realm, but I wasn't trying to be like an influencer. I actually just wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, and I was leveraging social media to kind of just get attention for that, just documenting my hikes. During COVID, there was nothing to do, so I was just posting my hikes all around Southern Oregon and Oregon. I wasn't trying to be an influencer per se. I was trying to just make cool stuff, and maybe eventually someone might be like, hey, let's make a documentary together. And before I knew it, it kind of snowballed, and then that one viral video happened, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, and it seems like this has kind of been something you've developed over the past like 3 years now. So was that always like your niche, kind of getting into hiking and mental health, that kind of intersection, or did that kind of develop over the like past 3-ish years?
I would say that the outdoors has always been kind of my niche. Andy, I changed my username back in 2017 to Andy Films and Hikes because I started getting into hiking, but I was also at film school at the time. So I was like, I film and I hike. It's what I love. And over time, a little backstory. My wife and I have adopted 3 kids from foster care. Our 2 oldest have high special needs. They were abused and neglected in every way you can possibly think of before we adopted them. So I was very much aware of their mental health struggles and the lack of care that was in Oregon for especially kids and teens. The Oregonian has reported that Oregon ranks dead last when it comes to mental health services for children and teens. It's a well-known fact. And so I was always talking about it, but really wasn't like the focus of my content. And I just did this as a way just to be funny, but also to destigmatize mental health. I had started going to therapy myself, working through past traumas, my past, being the parent of special needs kids with high needs, mental health needs. And it just kind of really resonated with people. And the more it resonated with people, the more I started focusing on hiking and mental health and going on using the outdoors as a way to really be a therapeutic tool for your mental health. I started hiking at the behest of my therapist. I was talking to my therapist. I just graduated film school. I didn't really know what to do with my life. I was kind of going through like big existential crisis. And she was literally said, try going for a hike. We're in Ashland, Oregon. There's plenty of hiking. I did. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is now my personality. And it snowballed from there to that video. And since then, I've really used my platform to advocate for public lands and for mental health, especially in Oregon. Recently testified in front of the Oregon State Senate Committee on Human Services about the lack of mental health care services for children and teens. I'm constantly talking with state representatives and senators and people at the Oregon Health Authority, Oregon Department of Human Services. And it's just snowballed. It's been this really cool thing. It's also been kind of devastating to see how Oregonians are really suffering, especially children and teens, for lack of mental health services.
Well, tell us a little bit more about that connection between being outside in nature and the benefits that has for mental health. Like, what is it? You said you went out there at that time in your life and you found that hiking really helped you. What was it about the experience that was so beneficial for you?
I was struggling. I had a little background. I was a conservative evangelical pastor for 15 years. Around 2017, I left because certain things were happening in the world, and I was like, this isn't for me anymore. I'm out. Immediately went to film school and was struggling just kind of with what's my place in this world? Who am I? I was talking to my therapist about this, and had this really kind of existential hole in my life. Like I used to have thought I had all the answers, and when she said try going for a hike, spending time in the outdoors, just being out there and this connection to nature, this connection to something bigger than myself, walking through the forest, walking down a trail, walking up a mountain, it gave me just a sense of there's something more and bigger, and a sense of awe and wonder that I hadn't experienced before, and the sense of connection. I remember my first backpacking trip here in Southern Oregon. We were doing like a 14-mile section of the Pacific Crest Trail, me and my son, and there was a spot we were waiting to get water, to filter water, and we get to the spot, and the stream was dry, and this was late May, and it was a particularly dry summer. Not a whole lot of snow. And I remember feeling a little disappointed and worried, but I knew, we had a few more miles until the next water spot. But this connection in nature that I was depending on the earth to provide me with this resource, and it wasn't there as a result of things like global warming and climate change. It was like, wow. And I remember having this awe and wonder, like, wow, I am deeply connected to the earth right now. I need the earth to provide me this resource, and it's not there because we've screwed things up. And there was a sense of like, oh gosh, I hope the next place has water like it's supposed to, and it did. But this is deep and utter connection, because I think we're in our homes, we turn on the faucet, the water comes out, and we flip the switch, the power comes on. But to be out there in nature and to be completely dependent on it for water and shelter and things of that nature was deeply changing to who I was. And it just made me realize that there's a whole big world out there, and I'm a part of it. I'm a small cog in it. And something about that just really was beneficial to my mental health. It calmed my heart. It calmed my mind. Even now, when I'm going, I do a lot of travel now. I'll be out and about, and maybe I'll be grumpy, and my wife's like, "You need to go for a hike," and you're like, "You know what? You're right." And I live in a beautiful place where I can be on a trail in 10 to 15 minutes from my house, and something about it just calms my mind, and I'm able to recenter. Because in my life, I'm an outdoor influencer, but I'm still an influencer. I'm tied to my phone so much. I'm talking with my manager, my agent. I'm talking with different companies who want this content or that content, and it's exhausting. But just getting somewhere where I know there's not going to be any service. Like I couldn't communicate with anybody if I wanted to, and just go for a 2-3 mile hike or just go for a short backpacking trip and get away, and I feel whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nature totally has this way of just putting everything into perspective and making you realize how silly all the things you're worrying about kind of are in the grand scheme of things. And you mentioned being so close to hikes in Southern Oregon. Jamie and I are in Portland, and we're also very lucky. We have Forest Park is in my backyard, so we have tons of places to hike. But can you tell us a bit about your area where you're at, what kind of hikes you have access to?
Southern Oregon, for most Oregonians, it's going to be different than what you're used to. We live at the convergence of the Cascade mountain range and the Siskiyou mountain range. So you have this very just biodiverse area. You have a lot of old alpine forest. You have the redwoods hour and a half away. I'm in Brookings or Crescent City a ton. The Cascade Siskiyou National Monument is this convergence where you have very California-looking meadows and high desert come together with, manzanita trees. It's so diverse. There's so many. It's probably a lot drier than what most people think of when it comes to Oregon. Just a huge amount of diversity. You have Mount McLaughlin not far from here. You have the Table Rock Plateaus, the coast. So much. I mean, I can be in Bend from here in 2 hours and hike in the high desert. It's such a great place to go. I go down to California a lot, Bernie Falls or Mount Shasta area. There's so many places to go, and I'm in Portland a ton. I don't mind the 4-hour drive up to Portland. So being up at the gorge and just going up at all the plethora of waterfalls you have up there. Also, there's the Rogue Umpqua Scenic Byway, which a lot of people call the Highway of Waterfalls, which starts in Gold Hill, Oregon, goes around past Crater Lake, and curves over to Roseburg. So many amazing waterfalls along the Rogue River and the Umpqua River. There's so much diversity. There's so much to see, whether you like deserts, mountains, drier climate, manzanita trees, redwood trees, alpine forests, old growth forests. It's here, and it's just valleys, so much valley hiking. It really is a paradise. And I get scared posting about it because I don't want everybody to know about it. I'm like, people are going to start coming here. I can still go out on a hike here in Southern Oregon, and people don't recognize me. Anytime I hike up in Portland, because of my platform, every time I'll even just be passing by Multnomah Falls. I'm like, oh, I'll take a picture of Multnomah Falls. I'll get recognized 3 or 4 times because there's so many people. But here it's you could literally be hiking along the Pacific Crest Trail, which runs right through here, for hours, and you're not going to see a soul, which is awesome if you're an introvert.
It's such an incredible resource we have here. This natural, not just this one natural landscape, but these half dozen different kinds of landscapes that you were mentioning. I lived in places Eastern Pennsylvania and Iowa. No shade on those places, but there's not the same kind of natural resource. There's maybe one park you go to with some trees, but out here we have like you're saying, the volcanoes, and the biggest river in the West meeting the biggest ocean on the planet.
Yep.
and like these enormous trees, and like that's, you know, humbling on a different scale. Like it's always nice to be connected with the natural world, but like I feel like, yeah, looking up at a volcano that could explode any moment, that's such a different kind of experience.
Yeah, like, I love, like, I'll get up to Table Rock Plateaus, Table Rock, that lower and upper Table Rock that go across along the Rogue River here in the Rogue Valley. I'll get up to the top of Lower Table Rock. I can see Mount Shasta on a clear day. I can see Mount McLaughlin on a clear day. If it's really clear, I can sometimes see Jefferson. You know, it's like all this stuff all around us. Like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get out so many places in Oregon, so it sounds like you're kind of constantly exploring this state. And I know Southern Oregon is your home, the place you've kind of settled, but what are maybe some of your favorite like outdoor places around Oregon? If you had to pick maybe one or two.
I got two. Crater Lake National Park. It's an hour from me. I literally live off Crater Lake Highway, so it goes straight there. Beautiful, so underrated. People think it's just a big deep lake, and it is a beautiful deep lake, but there's so much amazing biodiversity around there. Because of all the volcanic activity, got this rich, beautiful soil. I was just there last weekend. You know, I'm driving up the road. You know, it's 20-foot snow banks on either side. You're just like, it's freaky. And also the Columbia River Gorge. I have not even scratched the surface of what there is to do in the Columbia River Gorge. I love it. I love being around Hood River, Cascade Locks area, anywhere along the Columbia River Gorge is just absolutely gorgeous, and I love it.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like there's so much here in Oregon, let alone the Pacific Northwest, let alone like the American West. Like you can really spend a lifetime and not even see all of it. I mean, I've been doing travel writing here now for like almost a decade, and there's a lot of places I've never been to. And you know, sometimes people are like surprised by that, like, oh, you haven't been X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no, there's like, you only have so much time. And even if you're doing this full time, like you're going out these places, you know, really professionally, and you're going out there constantly. Yeah, you can't possibly get to it all. But even seeing one or two places, like you're saying, it can be really beneficial. Or, you know, I guess this is the question I have for you here is, you know, I wondered if you found a benefit of like really getting to know your like local spots. You talk about like these places right outside your door, right in your neighborhood. Like, have you developed a relationship with those pieces of land?
Oh, absolutely. I feel very almost possessive, and maybe that's the wrong word, over some of these areas. You know, anywhere along the Rogue River, that's my river. The Rogue River is my river, and you know, I see someone littering, I'm gonna call them out. Like, I'm very possessive. I'm very like, no, you are not. This is our land. It's my land. Honestly, it's the land of the Kelma people who were here thousands of years before us, who the U.S. Army drove out in the Rogue River Trail Tiers, which we can talk about later. I get very possessive of it. The Table Rocks, Lower and Upper Table Rock, I've hiked those things, you know, probably 24 times each. I'm very. I just feel this deep connection to Southern Oregon, all the Southern Oregon section of the Pacific Crest Trail. I've hiked every section of it, basically between the California border and Crater Lake. It's all very familiar, and like, I don't mind. It's funny, people are like, don't you get sick of doing some of these hikes again and again? And no, I don't. There's always something new. I went about the Rogue River this morning. We've had a lot of snowpack melt all of a sudden because it got really warm. And the entire landscape around the beach that I saw last year on the Rogue River that I usually go to is completely changed, and it's completely different. And, you know, it's amazing to see how the landscape changes and how it develops, and how even the waterfalls will change their flow sometimes. And yeah, I definitely feel like Southern Oregon is my place. You know, Mount McLaughlin's my mountain. The Rogue River is my river. And I just love this place. Not that I have any ownership over it. I don't. But it's just like, that's where I go for solace and peace. Like, I want to go by a river, I'm going to go by the Rogue River. Umpqua is great. Columbia River is great. Willamette River is great. But the Rogue River is my river.
Mm-hmm. It's like this protective kind of nature over it. And yeah, that's really important because not everyone's has that perspective of wanting to protect the land around you. So I know I kind of feel a similar sense towards some of the parks that I go to. I have my favorite spots around Portland. And you're so right about being able to experience these places in different times and different like seasons. So beyond kind of hiking these places, you get so many different experiences just going during, winter or summer, but there's different ways to experience the land too. And besides hiking, how else do you, go out there and get into nature? I know Jamie and I talk a lot about going to Mount Hood and snowboarding and doing things like that. Are there any of those other outdoor activities that you're really fond of?
I've gotten really into snowshoeing, which I'm originally from Southern California, Las Vegas. We moved to Oregon in 2007. I hated the snow, and I was actually with another outdoor influencer, Miranda, who used to work for REI, and she's like, I want to teach you how to go snowshoeing for the first time, and we got snowshoes, and we were up at Lake Wenatchee up in Washington, and she taught me how to snowshoe. I'm like, oh, I love this. Snowshoeing, absolutely amazing. I did an event with All Trails last year where I learned what forest bathing was, and now just to take my camping chair and just sit and just find a rock or a down tree and just sit and be in the forest and just take it in. It's extremely therapeutic. A lot of people think to be outdoorsy, I need to snowboard, I need to snowshoe or hike, but just being out in the forest, being out in the desert, wherever it is you're at, and just being in nature. The kids like to say, touch grass. My daughter's 12. She says, I need to go touch some grass. There's benefit to that. There's a reason they said, because there's benefit to connecting with nature. Just, taking off your shoes and letting your bare feet run through the grass or touch moss. I like to say touch moss because, I just like moss. And there's such a benefit to it. Being outdoorsy doesn't mean you have to go, climb a mountain or conquer some big trail. Just being in the outdoors. I like just, I've gotten into kayaking a little bit, which has been really, really cool around here. I want to start doing some whitewater rafting. We have some amazing, the Rogue River is amazing for rafting. And just camping, just going and getting a tent. Even just sometimes I'll grab my backpacking tent and just put it in my car and go find a, first come first serve camping spot where there's no one else and just camp for a night or two. If I have a free night, like taking my family, load us all up, and we'll go and just be in the forest camping for a week. There's nothing like it.
I love that, and I love the image of you just sitting in a chair in the woods like that. That sounds so nice.
That's great. Something that just like anybody can do, like beyond any capability. Like mostly everyone can just sit outside.
Yep.
You don't have to like be out there hiking or doing extreme sports.
Yep. And I think that's a big barrier for a lot of people is they think, oh, I'm not in shape enough. I don't know enough. Which I get. It's so nerve wracking. You hear stories, what if I see a bear? What if I see a cougar? I literally, a few months ago, I was sitting in a chair by the river and I saw a cougar cub walk right by. And I'm like, oh crap. That means mom is nearby. I very quietly sat there, folded on my chair, very carefully, slowly walked back to my car. It happens, but most of the time, I guarantee you, I've been seen by a cougar 1,000 times more than I've ever seen a cougar in the wild. They're there, and they don't want anything to do with you. There's a lot of fears people have about being in the outdoors, but and there are some legitimate barriers. You have transportation. Park passes are a barrier for a lot of people. Having, sometimes you do need the right clothing and gear to be safe out there. But you can still just go out and find a green space, especially in Portland. One thing I love about Portland, and I always say if I move to a big city, it's going to be Portland because there's so many green spaces just to go. Tyrone State Park, Forest Park is, it's just gorgeous. You forget you're in Portland. Just to go and sit and enjoy nature, enjoy being in green spaces, or I know I'm from Las Vegas, they have desert spaces like that that are beautiful, and just soak it in.
Since you've been doing this more and more and more, I know you said when you first started doing like the documentary filmmaking and doing this account, like it was sort of a newer thing to you, but now that you've really it's become what you do you feel like the content you've been creating has been changed or has grown at all with your sort of increased experience outside?
Absolutely. I do a lot less. I still do. I did one recently, stupid hike for stupid mental health videos. People like them. They do really well. But also I want to educate people about the outdoors. I did a video this last weekend about, what park passes do you need? I've gone with people hiking and they're like, oh, they don't check, you'll be fine. I'm like, no, we need to fund these public lands. You need to get your state park pass if you have the resources to do it. Your state park pass, your county park pass, your America the Beautiful pass, because this helps fund these areas and explaining to people, what this is, as far as what passes you need. And you can go to REI and they'll have a list of everything you need for your local area, the Northwest Forest Pass, snow passes, all that stuff. But also I'm starting a series next week where it's just questions I get about hiking. My first one's going to be, what if I see a bear? I get that a lot. Like, that's probably the number one question new hikers or people are looking into hiking. What about bears? And it's going to be silly. I have a blow up bear suit I'm going to use and just talk about, you might see a bear and they're likely just going to run away because I think of bears of introverts. They see you, they're like, nope, and they go the other direction. And what to do if a bear does get aggressive, and there's different things you can do. But I've seen a bear in the wild. It literally fell out of a tree and it ran away. It was kind of funny. Scared the crap out of me. But so just education, and really also another thing I do is I do a lot just of encouraging content, encouraging people. I call myself an outdoor mental health content creator, encouraging people just in their daily lives. You are good enough. You are worthy of dignity and respect. You are worthy of love. It's content to destigmatize mental health, especially amongst men who are afraid they're going to be seen as weak if they admit there's a problem. They're going to be seen as weak if they go to a therapist. And I always try to do that content in the backdrop of the outdoors. I'm by the river. I'm running through the rain or whatever. It definitely developed more and more and more, besides just the silly 7-second, stupid hike for stupid mental health videos, which I still love doing. I've had other content. There was an audio I did a few years ago that was, do you see this? It's freaking nature and it's freaking awesome. Woohoo. The video did okay, but like 50,000 people used that audio. It was like the outdoor audio of the summer that summer. And just things to encourage people like, yeah, this is nature and it's great for your mental health, and it's okay to seek mental health and mental health services. It's okay to admit, you're struggling, or just, realize, hey, you have dignity, worth, and purpose, and you are nature and you belong here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's such an important kind of piece of affirmation almost to leave people with.
Absolutely. I always want to make sure that people come back from my content feeling encouraged. There's a lot going on in the world, and I address it sometimes in my content, about mental health crisis here in Oregon, and the public lands crisis we're now facing with defunding of public lands on the federal level. I was at a protest at Crater Lake National Park last week, protesting the firing of park rangers. And I try to be very careful about those kind of posts because I obviously have very strong opinions about things, but I want people to not feel like there's no hope. I want people to feel like, things are crazy right now, and they are, but we still have these beautiful places we can go to, and you're still worthy of love and respect, and we need to love each other, and we need to show each other love and respect no matter who you are, where you come from, who you love, or how you identify.
I love that. I'm so glad you're out there doing that work, Andy. That's really, really good stuff, and it's great to be feeding people that on the algorithm instead of some of the other stuff that we often get in social media. Before we let you go, what is the best way for people to find you? Where can people find your posts these days?
At Andy Films and Hikes on Instagram's the main one, but I also got a significant following on TikTok, trying to build up my Instagram shorts too. Same there. You just Google Andy Films and Hikes, a bunch of stuff will pop up.
Awesome. Well, Andy, hey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. It's really wonderful to talk to you and hear all about the work you're doing, and we'll keep an eye out for more videos here on social media.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, folks, that will do it for us for today. Until next time, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel, as well as HereIsOregon.com.
Please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show, and if you want to support this podcast as well as our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find details at oregonlive.com/podsupport. Also, if you're a fan of the show and interested in potentially sponsoring it, you can get in touch with our marketing people at advertise@oregonian.com. This episode of the show is produced by me, alongside Jamie Hale and Vicky Connor.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. Until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of Zen.